there. Today we're continuing our exploration of conscious communication with two new concepts: empathy and self-empathy. When everything is going well for us, when we're on an even keel, it's easy to feel empathy for others. Empathy meaning caring for others, wanting to understand what others are going through, what are their feeling and needs. So when we're okay, it's easy for us to take into account what the other person is feeling. It's when you're under pressure that things get tricky. Here's an example. I went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning to finish an important paper. I got up this morning, got dressed in a hurry, took a spill over my boyfriend's misplaced shoes, got to the car only to see that it had a flat tire. I finally managed to get to work, and I get a call from a friend who tells me that she has once again gotten into a little argument with her boyfriend. It's quite possible, given the circumstances, that I may not be as receptive as usual and what she's telling me. I may even, God forbid, tell her to leave me alone and deal with her own problems. Of course, I would never say such a thing, but I may very well feel like it. It's quite a balancing act to be able to always keep an eye on our reserve of empathy. Let's imagine it in the form of an oxygen tank strapped to your back, to our back, as in this picture, for ourselves and for others. And to make sure it's always at least half full. If our empathy reserve is less than half full, we should avoid having the conversation in the example above. In such case, it's better to just take a step back by telling the other person we care, but that we will get called back soon. And then to do something that will allow us to refill our empathy tank. How do we do this? By making an habit of doing things that make us feel good right away. When possible, of course. So getting some rest, or a bite to eat, going for a run, or calling a dear friend. By doing such things, your reserve of empathy will eventually get back to an appropriate level, and you'll be able to engage in serious conversation that require a good dose of empathy. This is for empathy. Now, what is self-empathy, also called self-compassion? It's my capacity to look at what's going on inside of me and to feel compassion towards myself. For example, if I realize that I'm disappointed at myself for not having the grade or the result I wanted, I ought to shoot myself with empathy in telling me, there it is, it's human, it happens. I did all I could. Another example, if I realize that I'm angry at the COVID situation and at all that it implies lately in my life, I take a note of it, but I tell myself that this is a normal reaction, and I find a way to gently soothe myself instead of overreacting or blaming myself for having this feeling. That's the essence of self-empathy. Learning to take negative emotion at face value and finding ways to effectively cope with them. This ties in with what we've learned in the preceding video, that is using our mind's eye to delve deep into ourselves and to identify what emotion, what our need are dwelling there in order to unlock them free gently. Some people may find feeling empathy for themselves difficult, as they tend to automatically focus on others rather than themselves. Can you imagine a mother or father with their children, or a dedicated nurse, a therapist, for example? These people sometimes tend to forget themselves for the good of others. Practicing self-empathy is particularly important for these people. We need to change the distorted thought that having self-empathy means being selfish or over self-centered. In the example above, would I be rude with a friend who would have had the same result or grade as me? Probably not. Why are we treating ourselves differently? We'll explore some hypotheses for it in video 9 with the impact of those distorted thoughts. For other people will have no trouble taking care of themselves, but will find it difficult to think of others, to care about what the other person is feeling. Now is the time to explain the difference between the concept of empathy and sympathy. Empathy means genuinely caring for what the other person is thinking and feeling, but keeping this separate from my personal feelings. Sympathy means blending the other person's reality with what I think is good for them. For example, when hearing about your friend's breakup, you tell her, for example, "Oh, I know what you're feeling. I've gone through that too. And I did this, I did that, and it helped a lot." Sympathy is mixing the other person's experience with my own take on things. This is not a bad thing in itself, but we must be careful not to overuse it for fear of losing the other one's person perspective. Here's another example to illustrate the difference between empathy and sympathy. Your friend calls to tell you that he's just lost his job. If you show empathy, you will ask yourself what your friend really needs right now, and how you can help him meet this need. What emotion is he feeling right now? Is he in shock, surprised, disappointed, or maybe he just needs to talk about it and to analyze the situation with me? On the other hand, if I resort to sympathy, I immediately think of what I would do in his situation and tell him that he should update his resume, put it online, send it out, or so, etc. As you can see from these two examples, empathy and sympathy are in fact two very different things. Empathy focuses exclusively on the other person's situation, while sympathy mixes our own experiences with what the other person is currently going through. Once again, for those who feel like it, I'm posting a short integration exercise that features a series of coded sentences, because as you know, it's quite rare that people will say, I'm feeling a bit sad because I have the impression that my need for consideration hasn't been met. People don't really talk like that, and if you do, people will tell you, "Oh, come on, enough of your psychology lingo." If you are aware of it, you will in fact probably say something like, "Oh well, I haven't been feeling quite like myself lately. I think I'm a little bit sad, and I'd really need to talk to you guys more. I think that would help." And it's perfect. Oftentimes, people will resort to coded phrases to convey their unconscious needs. Things like, well, of course, We all know that it's always the same people who get everything. When you hear that from a friend, you have to ask yourself, okay, what is it exactly that this person is trying to tell me? Is she or he envious, unsatisfied, feels a need for more equity, justice, consideration? When you're asking yourself this question, you're using your reserve of empathy to try and decode the emotion, to uncover the underlying need your friend is trying to express. Once you're uncovered the unmet need behind the person's statement, you can use a technique called reflection, just to reflect in your own words like a mirror what the other person just said in order to make sure that you correctly understood what the person is saying or feeling. To do this, you would say, for example, yeah, you would also like to get what you got, huh? Or you'd like to get the same amount of money from your father. You find that somewhat unfair. One problem with coded sentences, with concealed feelings and needs, is that they often come with a stinging barb that may trigger a negative reaction on our part. For example, if your friend says something like, well, we certainly don't see you very often lately, you might be tempted to respond with, well, you can talk, I don't see you coming over very often either. When you get this kind of comment, you must ask yourself, okay, what does this mean exactly? What need is not being met right now? You have to check your empathy reserve. And hopefully it's full enough to enable you to respond with something like, I know, you'd like it if we could see each other more often. And then your friend says, well, yeah, I feel like we never get to see each other anymore. You work a lot, you know. And then you reply, yes, that's true. I have a lot on my plate lately, but what you're saying is true. We could spend an evening together. That would do us good. What about if... But behaving like this is really not easy. You're going to need enough empathy for both your friend, who needs something important, and for yourself. Because being told such things is always hurtful. That's why we must become adept at feeling when we stand with regards to our empathy reserve. So, this concludes this video. As you can see on the screen right now, you can use again the list of feelings and needs I've talked about earlier in video 5 to help you fill out this integration exercise. I sincerely hope it helps you. See you next time for our last video on this 3-part series on conscious communication. In the next video, we will be looking at the 4 steps to meaningful communication, and we will integrate as we go all that what we'll learn in the previous videos. Until then, have a great day. See you soon.